The champagne fountain was still bubbling when the police cars pulled up to the mansion my twin sister Natalie had bought with my inheritance money. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I watched her face transform from triumphant hostess to cornered animal as the officers approached the front door. Her designer dress, the one that cost more than most people's monthly salary, suddenly looked like a prison uniform waiting to happen. Karma, I whispered to myself from my car across the street, arrives exactly when it's supposed to. But to understand how we got here, how my identical twin sister ended up in handcuffs at her own housewarming party, I need to take you back 6 months, to the day our grandmother died. My name is Victoria Sterling, and I'm the older twin by exactly 7 minutes. Those 7 minutes were the only time in our lives that Natalie hadn't tried to take something that was mine. From the moment she followed me into the world, screaming and demanding attention, she'd been playing catch-up, convinced that being born second meant she deserved to take first place in everything else. Growing up, Natalie and I were mirror images with opposite souls. Same honey blonde hair, same green eyes, same heart-shaped face that made people do double takes on the street. But where I was quiet and studious, Natalie was loud and demanding. Where I saved my allowance, she spent hers and then cried until she got mine too. Where I built relationships, she burned bridges and expected me to rebuild them. Our parents, exhausted by her constant tantrums, had long ago adopted a policy of appeasement. Just give her the doll, Victoria. Let her wear your new dress, Victoria. She's your sister, Victoria. But our grandmother, Grandma Eleanor, saw through it all. That child, she'd say, watching Natalie manipulate another situation to her advantage, is going to learn a hard lesson one day. Grandma Eleanor was old money in every sense of the word. Her fortune came from her late husband's shipping empire, but she'd grown it herself through careful investments and an sharp eye for real estate. She lived modestly despite her wealth, believing that money should work for you, not define you. I spent every summer at her estate in Connecticut, learning about art, music, and the stock market. Natalie came too, but usually spent the time complaining about the lack of a pool or begging for shopping trips to Manhattan. By the time we were teenagers, Natalie had stopped coming altogether, preferring to summer with friends in the Hamptons. She thinks I'm boring, Grandma Eleanor had said with a wry smile. And perhaps I am, but boring people often have the most interesting secrets. The last time I saw my grandmother alive was 2 weeks before her death. I'd driven up from New York, where I worked as a museum curator, a job Natalie mocked as playing with dusty old things for pennies. Grandma Eleanor was 87, sharp as ever but fragile in a way that made my chest tight. Victoria, she'd said, her papery hand holding mine, I've left you everything. Grandma, let me finish. I've left you everything because you're the only one who ever saw me as a person, not a bank account. Your sister, well, she made her choice long ago. She'll be furious, I warned. Grandma Eleanor's eyes, still bright despite her age, had twinkled with something like mischief. Oh, I'm counting on it. In fact, I've made some special provisions, just in case she tries anything creative. Your sister is many things, but subtle isn't one of them. 2 weeks later, a heart attack took her in her sleep. Peaceful, the doctor said. The way she would have wanted to go. At the funeral, Natalie played the part of the grieving granddaughter perfectly. Designer black dress, theatrical tears, clutching my arm as if we were united in our loss. She'd even given a speech about how much Grandma Eleanor meant to us, as if she hadn't ignored her for the last decade. I can't believe she's gone, Natalie had sobbed to anyone who would listen. We were so close. The will reading was scheduled for the following Monday at the offices of Hartley and Associates, Grandma Eleanor's law firm for the past 40 years. I arrived early, nervous despite knowing what was coming. Mr. Hartley, a distinguished man in his 70s who'd known our family for decades, greeted me warmly. Your grandmother was a remarkable woman, he said. She thought of everything. Natalie arrived late, of course, sweeping in with an entourage. Her husband Derek, a real estate developer with questionable ethics, and her personal assistant, a nervous young woman who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. Let's get this over with, Natalie announced, checking her phone. I have a showing at 2. Mr. Hartley's expression didn't change, but I caught the slight tightening around his eyes. He'd dealt with Natalie before. The reading was straightforward. Some charitable donations, some personal items to old friends, and then, to my granddaughter Victoria Eleanor Sterling, I leave the remainder of my estate, including all financial assets, real estate holdings, and personal property, valued at approximately $7 million. The silence that followed was deafening. I kept my eyes on Mr. Hartley, but I could feel Natalie's stare burning into the side of my face. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice dangerously sweet. "Could you repeat that? I think there's been a mistake." "There's no mistake, Mrs. Drake. Your grandmother was quite clear in her wishes. But that's impossible. We're twins. Equal distribution is standard. This must be contestable." Mr. Hartley adjusted his glasses. "Your grandmother anticipated you might feel that way. She included a letter to be read in the event of any challenges to the will." He opened a sealed envelope and began to read in Grandma Eleanor's distinctive voice. "To whomever seeks to challenge this will, know that my decisions were made with full mental capacity and careful consideration. I have left my estate to Victoria because she is the only one who valued me as a grandmother, not an ATM. To Natalie, I leave this advice. Money earned is always worth more than money taken. Perhaps it's time you learned that lesson." Natalie's face had gone from red to purple to white in the span of 30 seconds. "This is insane. I'm her granddaughter too. I deserve half of everything." "Deserve?" I finally spoke, my voice steadier than I felt. "When was the last time you even spoke to her, Nat? When was the last time you visited without asking for money?" "That's not, you don't, Derek, do something." Derek was already on his phone, presumably calling their lawyer. Natalie stood abruptly, her chair screeching against the floor. "This isn't over," she hissed at me. "You think you're so special, so perfect. We'll see about that." She stormed out, Derek trailing behind, leaving me alone with Mr. Hartley. "Your grandmother," he said quietly, "included some very specific protective clauses in this will. She seemed to think your sister might attempt something inappropriate." "Like what?" He slid a document across the desk. "Like this. It's called a fraud protection clause. If anyone attempts to claim the inheritance through false pretenses, forged documents, identity theft, that sort of thing, they not only forfeit any claim to the estate, but also face criminal prosecution." Your grandmother was very thorough. I stared at the clause, written in dense legal language. She really thought Natalie would try to steal it? She said, and I quote, "That girl has been taking Victoria's things since they were in diapers. I won't let her take this too." For the next 3 weeks, I heard nothing from Natalie. The silence was more unnerving than her threats. I began the process of settling the estate, meeting with financial advisors, touring the properties I'd inherited. The museum gave me a leave of absence to handle everything. Then, on a Thursday morning, I got a call from Mr. Hartley. "Victoria, I need you to come to my office immediately. There's been a development." My stomach dropped. "What kind of development?" "Someone claiming to be you came to my office yesterday afternoon. They had your ID, knew all the right information, and signed papers to liquidate the entire estate." The room spun. "That's impossible. I was at the museum all day yesterday. I have witnesses." "I know," he interrupted. "That's why I stalled the paperwork. Your grandmother warned me this might happen. How quickly can you get here?" I broke every speed limit getting to his office. Mr. Hartley was waiting with 2 other people, a woman I didn't recognize and a man who looked like security. "This is Detective Morrison," he explained. "I called her when I suspected fraud. And this is our security chief, Tom. He has some footage you need to see." The security video was grainy but clear enough. A woman who looked exactly like me walked into the building at 3:47 p.m. My walk, my hairstyle, even my mannerisms. She signed in at reception, took the elevator to Mr. Hartley's floor, and spent 45 minutes in his office. "That's when she started making mistakes," Mr. Hartley said. "She was too eager, too pushy. You're always cautious about financial decisions. She wanted everything liquidated immediately, transferred to an offshore account. When I suggested we should wait, follow proper procedures, she became agitated. She also," Detective Morrison added, "made one crucial error. She signed the documents with her left hand." I held up my right hand. "I'm right-handed." "We know. We checked your previous signatures. Your sister, however, is left-handed." The pieces clicked into place. Natalie had stolen my ID, probably during the funeral when she'd been clutching my arm. She'd studied me, practiced being me, and thought she could waltz in and steal $7 million. "Where is she now?" I asked. Detective Morrison smiled grimly. "We've been tracking the offshore account she set up. The money was never transferred, of course." Mr. Hartley stalled beautifully. "But she's been checking the account obsessively, waiting for the funds to appear. Yesterday, she put a deposit down on a mansion in Westchester. Cash offer, claiming the rest would be wired within the week. She's that confident she got away with it? Criminals often are. We're planning to arrest her at the housewarming party she's throwing tomorrow night. She's already sent invitations, apparently, calling it her dream home celebration. I stared at them. She's throwing a party to celebrate stealing my inheritance? Mr. Hartley pulled out an invitation, thick cardstock, gold embossing. You're invited, actually. She's being very gracious about her recent windfall. That's how I found myself parked across from a $3.5 million mansion the next night, watching my twin sister celebrate her imagined victory. She'd invited everyone, old friends, distant relatives, society connections Derek had cultivated. Caterers circulated with champagne and canapes. A string quartet played in the garden. Detective Morrison sat beside me in the unmarked car. We're waiting for her to make a speech, she explained. She's been telling everyone about her inheritance. The more witnesses to her lies, the stronger our case. At 8:47 p.m., Natalie clinked a champagne flute. The crowd gathered around her on the mansion's grand staircase. Thank you all for coming, she began, her voice carrying clearly through the open windows. As many of you know, I recently lost my beloved grandmother, Eleanor Sterling. I gripped the door handle, fury rising at hearing her claim a relationship she'd abandoned. She left me her entire estate, Natalie continued, recognizing the special bond we shared. This house is just the beginning of the beautiful life she wanted for me. That's our cue, Detective Morrison said, speaking into her radio. All units move in. What happened next was beautiful in its precision. Police cars materialized from every direction, officers in uniform walking calmly but purposefully toward the front door. The party guests noticed immediately, whispers rippling through the crowd. Natalie was still talking, oblivious. I plan to honor her memory by Mrs. Drake. Detective Morrison's voice cut through the night. I need you to come with us, please. The champagne flute slipped from Natalie's hand, shattering on the marble steps. What's happening? Derek? Derek, do something. But Derek was already backing away, his face a mask of shock and calculation. He knew exactly what this meant. Natalie Drake, you're under arrest for identity theft, fraud, and attempted grand larceny. This is a mistake, Natalie shrieked as they cuffed her. I'm Victoria Sterling. That's my inheritance. Tell them, Derek. Derek said nothing. He was probably already calculating how to distance himself from this disaster. As they led her past the windows, Natalie's eyes found mine through the glass. For just a moment, our identical faces stared at each other, one heading to jail, one finally free. Victoria, she screamed. Victoria, please. We're sisters. We're twins. I stepped out of the car then, walking slowly toward the mansion she'd bought with money she'd tried to steal. The party guests parted before me, some recognizing me, others just sensing the drama unfolding. Yes, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. We're twins. But being family doesn't give you the right to take what isn't yours. It never has. The last thing I saw before the police car drove away was Natalie's face pressed against the window, tears streaming down her cheeks. Not tears of remorse. I knew my sister better than that. Tears of rage that, for once in her life, she couldn't take what was mine. Grandma Eleanor had been right. Natalie did learn a hard lesson that day. And she learned it in handcuffs, at the housewarming party for a mansion she'd never actually owned, in front of everyone she'd tried to impress with her stolen fortune. The fraud protection clause worked exactly as intended. Natalie was sentenced to 5 years in prison for identity theft and fraud. The mansion was seized as evidence of criminal intent. Derek filed for divorce before she'd even been processed. I kept one photo from that night, a shot someone had posted on social media before they realized what was happening. It shows Natalie at the top of the staircase, champagne raised, lies flowing from her lips, completely unaware that her 7 minutes of stolen time had finally run out. Grandma Eleanor's real gift wasn't the money. It was teaching me that some people will always try to take what you've earned. The trick is being smarter than they are, and having a